Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 306th episode of Real Hawk Talk. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter at Hawk Blogger, and you can find us on YouTube at Real Hawk Talk. And if you're listening on audio or you want to listen on audio, we are on whatever favorite podcast medium you like: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and so forth. I think eventually we're going to need to get onto YouTube Music or something like that. I don't know if we're on Amazon yet. I should probably look into that. But anyway, all the favorites are there. So second show of the week. We are super happy. Someone says my audio is gnarly.
It was just a little scratchy, but it might be proximity to Mike. I think you sound better right now. You sound good right now.
Let's turn that bad boy down a little bit. Is that better?
A lot better. I think you're good.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Jen Maz, for the heads up. So this is our second show of the week because there's a lot of Seahawks news going on, and tonight we are gonna do a duo. It's gonna be myself and Evan Hill at Evan Hill HB on Twitter. And Evan, man, I don't know if there's anybody more excited about the direction of the Seahawks than you, my friend. How are you doing?
Oh my God. I am, we were talking about it in our chat today with Trey and Cole, one of our producers. And I can't remember, like, free agency is always, so free agency opens up next week. I think the tampering period opens up on Monday. Free agency is normally an exciting time, generally speaking, but I haven't felt this level of excitement that I have currently with this new regime, all the new decisions that are being made, a brand new coaching staff, John Schneider in a brand new role, a lot of roster turnover, saying goodbye to some faces that we've become accustomed to as locker room leaders over the past several years. This team, for a lack of better words, I think is going in a brand new direction. They are not stale. We don't know if it's a good direction yet. We don't know if it's a bad direction yet, but I can't remember being this excited about the Seahawks in late February, early March in probably like 6 to 7 years. Like I wish we could fast forward to week one right now. So I'm stoked. There's just so much genuine, like, if I'm Brian, I'm gonna step on a soapbox for a second. It feels so genuine. Like, my interest and curiosity in this team is so real and genuine for the first time in, like, again, like 6 to 7 years. Like, don't get me wrong, I've always cared about football, been interested in it. We've done 300 something episodes. We write articles, all that. We talk constantly about football. So it's not like I've been disengaged, but the organic interest in this team is at an all-time high for me, and it doesn't feel like there's this, like, forced not optimism, but like forced interest. Like, we talked so much about how this team, like, at points over the past several years have just been, like, difficult to watch, difficult to follow at times. Right now there's just a lot of hope and a lot of optimism. And I told Jeff today, again, in our group chat, like, my position as a fan is the worst position to be in as a franchise, is stuck in that, purgatory of mediocrity. And right now, we are not in that purgatory of mediocrity. We might be getting worse. We might be getting better. I don't know which direction it's going in yet. That's too early to be said, but we are going in a direction, and a direction is more fun than no direction. So I'm really excited about what's happening. I know folks have been sad with some of the names that have been gone over the past 48 hours, but, like, man, let me just tell you something. John Schneider, he understands the assignment. Mike Macdonald, he understands the assignment. The olds, with love and respect of yesterday, are not going to carry this team to another Super Bowl. It is time to gut the shit out of this team. Something that we have been honestly needing to happen for several years now. And anyways, I don't even remember what your original question was. I'm so sorry. Go Seahawks. Very exciting.
That's what I'm talking about, man. That's why I asked. I love it. I mean, judging by the chat, you're not alone. Yeah. There's change. And even from yesterday, the news came out about Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs and Will Dissly. And we, I did a pod yesterday. Tons. Evan, there were like almost 2,000 people watching yesterday. Me doing a solo pod about 3 roster cuts. That's not even additions to the team. That's just cutting people. And that's unusual to have that many people that tuned in and engaged to what's going on with the Seahawks at this time of year. So
in the first week of March,
right.
Yeah, it's absurd.
Right. It's different. And then today, new news broke. Brian Monet, the defensive tackle who missed last year with injury, was also released, clearing another $5.5 million in cap room. And so I want to start there with you on where does this leave the Seahawks from a cap perspective? And we can get into kind of some of the detail of it. But before we do, I want to ask you, there's a statement you've made a couple of times offline with me or in chat, which is you're just really excited that they're clearing 2025, that they're taking the cap hits this year and they're not pushing it out. Say more, like what is it about that? And what are some of the choices that you're seeing that they're making that are allowing them to do that?
Yeah, the big one that stands out to me was the Jamal Adams cut with a pre-June 1st designation. So his deal is officially, I think it's going to be processed here officially shortly, but they had he had a significant amount of dead money on his deal, and they chose not to split it, prorate it over 2 years. Doing a post June 1st designation cut would have done that, but they chose to accelerate all the remaining dead money, push it into 2024, and basically say, we'll eat it this year. It's going to reduce our ability to sign players this year. It's going to reduce our ability to make certain financial moves this year, but we are willing to take that dead money hit this year so the cap is fully clean for 2025. I love that decision. I wrote about it in my article earlier this offseason on our website. Like, it was a bold decision. It definitely impacts their financial abilities and flexibilities this year. But this is a team that, from my perspective as a fan, and when I look at how they're building the roster, they're not competing for a Super Bowl this year. They're laying the foundation to compete for the Super Bowl, I think, in a sustainable fashion. And from a cap perspective, those are the types of decisions they need to be making, is absorbing it into this year, just biting the bullet and just starting clean in 2025. So I think it's just smart. I'm on board with it. They currently sit at about 42, I think 0.6 million in cap space, or maybe it's 41.6, but they're in a good spot right now.
Yeah. So when we talk about next year, 2025, not 2024. I'm looking at those numbers now. You've got Tyler Lockett.
He's not going to be here at that number if he's here at all, right?
Yeah.
Let's assume Lockett's not on the roster next year. Can we make that
2024 or 2025?
2025.
Yeah. Okay.
So let's assume, not to cut you off, but let's assume.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Let's assume Tyler Lockett is not on the roster in 2025. Do we want to say Draymond Jones is on the roster in 2025?
Well, that's what I was kind of going towards. So you've got Geno Smith, who would be second in cap hit. Tyler Lockett would be first. Actually, that's not true.
Let's just say this.
Base, yeah.
Yeah. So Tyler Lockett has the highest. It's I think. I see what you're looking at. Over the cap has it a little mixed right now.
Up, right?
Yeah. So I think they have it arranged by base salary. No, it's actually not even by base salary.
No, it's not. Something's messed up on their site.
I think their tables are just messed up. Yeah.
In any event, though, right? Geno would be. You could save $25 million off the cap next year if you decided to move on from Geno.
Yeah.
And then I don't know that DK Metcalf's the guy you're going to move, but you could save $22 million if you did that. And then you get to Draymond Jones, who you could save $16.5 million next year. You can essentially get out of that with $6.5 million in dead money. So that's not great, but you get a little bit more flexibility. You get an opportunity to make a decision on Draymond Jones next season, not 2024, but going to 2025. And you're right. After that, it's pretty clean, dude. Like, there's not a lot of other guys that you need to think about.
They are eating it this year so they can mold this team in the perfect vision and fashion that Mike Macdonald wants. Whether it will work, who knows? But
how much do you think that the decisions made this week were influenced by the new coaches? Like, do you think that Mike Macdonald and Ryan Grubb and Leslie Frazier and Aiden Dirty and all those guys, were they exploring tape of Quandre Diggs and Jamal Adams and Brian Monet and whoever else and making decisions and saying, hey, no, we should move on from these guys? Or do you think this was essentially like 90% just John Schneider saying, hey, we got to clear room because we're going to have to make some additions?
That's a really good question. I think they had heavy influence. I think Mike Macdonald and his staff had heavy influence in these roster decisions because, like, a lot of these extension choices, John Schneider had a hand in, right? And if any of these guys were John Schneider's guys, and he's the top personnel executive, he oversees the coaching staff for this franchise. If any of one of these guys was his guy, he probably would have kept him, or at least I think made a strong argument to keep him. So I think they played probably a heavy influence. Are you in a different camp? Like, what's your perspective?
I mean, maybe I think Jamal Adams was pretty clean cut.
Yeah.
Quandre Diggs is 31. I get the impression that either way, they were going to just be in agreement that they wanted to start with someone fresh. I mean, bringing on a new coaching staff and getting Quandre Diggs coached up on the last year of his deal and then likely letting him go just doesn't really make a lot of sense. So I think that was probably going to happen either way. Dissly, this is a guy I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe explore bringing back at a different number. Like, let him see the market, let him see what's going on. But the cupboard's bare at tight end. Dissly's not bad. He's not worth that contract. So he's a guy that may come back, and I'm just curious to see. I think they might even be willing to wait till after the draft. But I think so far, all of these seem like moves that they were going to make no matter who their coaches were.
Yeah, I think it's I don't know if this is like logical, but my perception that they're going to be aggressive in free agency is increasing. Like, I think they might be more aggressive than we even projected.
What does that mean to you?
They're opening up. I mean, what did we talk about? We talked about, I think on the last show I was on, bringing in like 2 to 3 key outside free agents in the first 2 days, right? The first 2 waves of free agency.
Yeah.
I think it was a guard. I think we talked about a tackle, a defensive player, like a linebacker, maybe something on the defensive line.
Yeah.
This is a lot of space they're opening up. Like, if you look at their roster, nearly all of the potential moves that they needed to do to open up space, they have done.
Well, let me ask you about that. So I don't know that I've heard this discussed as well so far, which is we just talked about the 2025, not 2024, 2025, that they cleared up even more space there.
Yeah.
Right? Does that now give them more flexibility when they sign these free agents starting on Monday, which we're going to talk about here in a sec, to actually structure deals that push money out? Like,
totally.
Could they basically make some really small 2024 salaries and have the money moved out later?
Absolutely. And that's what we should expect, I think, them to do. Now, there might even be, I might pose the opposite. Let me throw this argument your way, Brian. They're opening up so much cap space that it makes me wonder if they're going to even be willing to front load maybe a contract or two. I don't know, because this is this is a lot of space they're opening up. Like 42 million year one cash space that they can use to leverage for free agent signings. Like, let's not forget, like, remember, quick example for the people, like 3 million or 3 year, $27 million, $9 million average. That year one is always low. It's a vet minimum salary plus the prorated signing bonus, maybe a roster bonus. It's always a fraction of it. So it'd be like 3, 4, 5 million, maybe. So 42 million is a lot of room to work with. I'm curious to
It's
see
going to be less than that, though, right? It's going to be,
yeah. So you got to think about, like, you subtract like 2 to 3 million for practice squad and IR, which is fine, whatever. But then remember, you have to subtract it for rookies. But really, the only rookie contracts that you have to care about are the first and second round picks. Okay, because they're above the replacement value cost. Which the replacement value cost is like $500K, something like that. So think about it. They don't have a second round pick as it stands today. Now, if they trade back, if they trade back and they add one, then you know what I mean. They have to compensate for that. But like, they're not picking top 5. They're picking at 16, I think, right? So 16, and I mean that's like $2 to $3 million in cap space. It's not a big deal. So
yeah. So and Tyler Lockett hasn't been touched yet, and one of my questions is, are they in the process of trying to renegotiate with him right now, leading up to free agency next week? And if he disagrees or doesn't do it, does he become a casualty? Or do they even really need to touch his contract right now?
Yeah, I don't think they need to touch his contract like immediately, since they've opened up so much space. They have the flexibility to make the moves they need to next week. They could always agree in principle, by the way, and sign later post a move. But I think my strong hunch with Lockett at this point, at this juncture, we've talked about it before on the show. I think they've probably approached him about, hey, they've approached him with a conversation, I think, of no insider knowledge on this, by the way, of like, do you still want to play football? And if you do, are you willing to adjust your contract? And I would bet that they're waiting on an answer from Lockett, and he's taking his time to consider his future. Again, no insider knowledge, but that's my hunch in terms of what's happening.
Yeah, and the history with Schneider on this stuff is, there's two sides to this. One is he doesn't need to renegotiate that deal until he signs somebody and that person's contract comes on and they reach some limit to where they now need the space. So they don't really need to do it right now. The reason that they would do it now is if there's a chance of saying, hey, we won't carry you at this contract number, and we want to figure this out for your benefit as a player, they could be prioritizing it now, because that could let Lockett hit the street and find another team. And they would do that. They would absolutely do that for someone like Tyler and what he's meant for the franchise. That would be the only reason that it would need to be somewhat, quote, pressing or urgent. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, even when you sign a player to a new deal, you have a decent amount of time until that you have to have that space available. So there's not this urgency to get Tyler redone. But the point being is, if they restructured Tyler, do you have a rough idea of how much more space that would represent?
Yeah, so he has 2 years left on this deal. I believe it's 24 and 25, but I'm just pulling up the contract to confirm that is true. So he has a huge base salary in 2024, $15.3 million. The minimum veteran like base salary for him is somewhere in like the $1 to $2 million range. So that's like the minimum they could drop his base salary to. I mean, they could open up. If they wanted to restructure his deal, they could open up anywhere up to like $10 million on his current deal. But I don't think it makes sense to like everything what they're doing in terms of like keeping the 2025 cap clean. Restructuring his deal would add dead money to 2025. And I just don't think they're going to do that. I think they're taking the hits this year and they're willing to eat it. And I think if he's back this year, it's at a It's just at a pay cut, I
Yeah.
think. And who knows if he's okay with that. But Von Miller just took a pay cut. Veterans take pay cuts all the time. And if he wants to end his career in Seattle, the franchise loves him. Everybody in the building loves him. He's made good money. He's a real estate agent now. He does a ton of stuff. Maybe he's willing to take a bit of a smaller number. So.
Yeah. So they have some flexibility if they want to get even more. But from your perspective, they've got money to spend. They've got a lot of money to spend. I agree with you, dude. I think Monday, what is it, 1:00 Pacific time? I can't remember exactly. We should look at it. But when free agency opens, I think let's talk about some of the Seahawks players and positions that could be day one kind of guys. Leonard Williams is a day one kind of guy to me. Like, if they don't have an agreement with him on day one, I don't know if they're going to have one.
Wasn't there a rumor that Leonard Williams just like bought a house in Seattle or something? Like,
I never pay attention to any of that shit, dude.
Do you not think that matters a little bit though? Like,
only thing that matters is when they announce that they have signed with the team. Otherwise, I pay attention to it as much as those, hey, spotted at the airport. Unless it's coming from Whitney, or it's coming from oh gosh, I'm forgetting his name, the guy that outed Grubb at Dino's.
Oh, that's funny.
But yeah, those two. Otherwise, I just don't pay attention. So it is March 5th was yesterday. That was the franchise deadline. March 11th. Let's see. March 11th at,
I think it's 1 p.m. Pacific. I think you had it. Tampering period, right? It's a 72 hours tampering window, I think.
Yes.
Or maybe 48 hours.
Technically, March 13th at 1 p.m. Pacific, so that would be Wednesday, is when they really can sign people. But we'll start hearing that deals have been agreed to, and we'll start knowing on Monday at 1. Yeah. And so I think Leonard Williams, I think the Christian Wilkins, I don't know if you paid attention to this at all. Christian Wilkins did not get tagged, defensive tackle out of Miami. Most people expected him to get tagged. He is, he's going to command a lot more than Leonard Williams. He's younger. I think he's probably more highly thought of around the league. I'm not sure what effect that's going to have on Leonard Williams' market, but you basically have Chris Jones, Christian Wilkins, and then Leonard Williams. So I feel like Leonard Williams has got to be someone that's a day one kind of thing. And then Evan, Patrick Queen, Jordan Brooks. Those guys strike me as like, maybe Jordan Brooks is day two, but he's not like week two. He's not a week two guy. Like, he's going to be, maybe he'll make some visits, but he's going to be pretty highly sought after.
Yeah.
And the guards we're talking about, I don't know if they're talking about, but like Kevin Zeitler, if they were to go after Jonah Jackson from Detroit, I think those guys are week one names. So they're going to have to be busy right away, and they're going to have room right away, and they're not going to want to be figuring out cap space in that situation. They just want to be executing these signings, right?
The Kevin Zeitler linkage just makes too much sense.
Pretty big.
Like, I think if there's one player where I had to bet my house, right, that the team signed this free agency as an outside player acquisition, so not like an extension or whatever, I think it's Kevin Zeitler. I really do. Ravens linkage. John Schneider tried to sign him several years ago. Fits an immediate need. It just makes too much sense.
He'd be a huge upgrade over what we've been looking at guard for a while. And I like that he's a veteran. I like that he would fit in that way. I personally would love Jonah Jackson as an alternative, younger, Pro Bowl level guy. I'd love to see him as well. But Zeitler makes sense. I got to tell you, dude, vibes for me are I was starting to think Leonard Williams was not going to be re-signed. I thought his number was going to be too high. As of right now, you ask me right now to bet on what's going to happen with him, I think the Seahawks re-sign him. And I think they sign him for a contract larger than Draymond Jones's deal.
Yeah, so what number do you become uncomfortable is my real question.
I think 20 million is what I'm bracing for.
So top of the market, obviously Aaron Donald, 31.6 million, Quentin Williams, Jeffrey Simmons, Darren Payne, Dexter Lawrence, Javon Hargraves, 21 million a year. DeForest Buckner's $21 million a year. Those were deals I think signed a couple years ago though. Jonathan Allen is 18 million a year.
Hargrave was just last year. I think Hargrave and Jones are the good kind of boundaries to think about. Hargrave was what, 21?
Yeah, Hargrave is 21 a year.
And Jones was 17.
Yeah.
So I could see Leonard Williams going for like 19 to 20.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That places him at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, between the 9th and 10th highest paid interior defensive lineman.
Which is about right. And if you did that, let's say that it's 19, let's say it's 20, whatever.
Sure.
What percentage of that contract would take up of the 41 million? How much do you think would likely be gone just from that deal alone?
Well, let's pulling up an example actually. So Javon Hargrave, right, signed with the Niners as a free agent last year. He signed a 4-year, $81 million deal. So let's just take those rough numbers. For example, that's a $20.5 million average. Year one for him with them was 6.5.
Whew. It's not a lot.
It's not a lot. Not a lot at all. And by the way, that's a fat signing bonus they gave him. They gave him a $23 million signing bonus. That guy sees, in terms of cash, like money hitting his wallet year one, it was like $25 million, which isn't bad. So
that's not bad.
It's more than 25% of the deal, right?
Yeah.
Up in year one.
I will say I'm not sure that Niners fans feel good about that deal right now.
Yeah, I really.
So I mean that's the thing. I feel like we're gonna be all right with Leonard Williams. I think he's gonna be good, but 8 times out of 10, 7 times out of 10, if you sign a free agent for that kind of money, you're gonna regret it. Like you just are.
Yeah,
it's not a position you want to be in. But Leonard Williams, I feel like that's gonna happen. But then I start getting uncomfortable, man. Like the Jordan Brooks, Patrick Queen situation. I would not be happy. I will tell you this right now. I will not feel good if we hear Leonard Williams day one, 20 million a year, Patrick Queen day one, 18 million a year. I won't feel good about that, dude. I won't. It's too much.
I think throwing that type of money at the linebacker position really scares me. It's the linebacker position particularly. I can buy into the defensive line.
Yes.
I can. The trenches. Yes. Talk me into it. I'm willing to bite the bullet on that. It's the linebacker play where it feels like that's a position to me, and I know it kind of goes against what the Ravens did a little bit with Roquan, but like to me, linebacker is a position you solve like almost last on a defense.
I don't think you can do that with Mike Macdonald. I think
that's what I'm saying. It's different from what he's done historically. It just makes me uncomfortable.
But dude, this is so. I think, and we're going to talk about this as well with safety, but I'm on this train. Jeff and I, real Jeff Simmons and I think are on the same train now of I'm like, let Jordan Brooks walk, let Patrick Queen go somewhere else and sign 2 of these starting level coverage specialized veteran linebackers. It could be Blake Cashman, Josh Cashman's brother.
Yeah.
It could be Drew Tranquil. It could be Willie Gay. It could be Josie Jewell, who's, probably could be a rotational backup, but can also start. And he started on good defenses.
Mhm.
But if you can spend, 10 to 12 million on 2 linebackers, as opposed to 12 to 15 on one, I like, even if they're not as good, I'm not saying that they're going to be Jordan Brooks, but I would like to have some high quality coverage linebackers on the cheap that you can walk away from. If it goes shitty, Evan, you go in the draft, you add some there, and you just deal with it. Like, you don't need them to all be great right away.
So, at what number does a Jordan Brooks extension make you nervous?
Anything over 12.
Do you know what 12 would put him at? Linebacker ranked positionally. Let me rephrase that. Contract wise, where would that rank in the NFL? Do you have a hunch?
For like off-ball linebackers or all linebackers? Because
all linebackers.
It's a little bit misleading.
I know.
With all the edge rushers.
I know, but over the cap doesn't position it differently. So
I mean, I would guess that would be like 20.
12 million a year?
15. I don't know.
So 12 million a year would be 7th ranked in the NFL.
No, really?
Linebackers have like a drop off. Like, you have Roquan, Fred Warner, Trayman Edmonds, CJ Mosley.
Oh, these are all off-ball linebackers. Then. I was thinking about the edge rushers were in there.
Oh, okay. No, they're not. No, the edge rushers are not in there.
Okay, okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, so it would be like 7th.
That's about where he belongs. Honestly, he's a good player.
He is a good player. Is he someone I want to spend $12 million on?
It's not where I'd want to do it. By the way, like, a lot of fans, most fans are on the other side of this. I
know they have a raging hard on for.
They do. Here, we got a super chat. Let's bring this on from Tycoon's World. By the way, good time to remind you, if you haven't already, give the show a like. Click subscribe to the channel. We have hundreds of new subscribers already this month. You want to click the bell to get notified because, folks, there's a lot going on. We went live yesterday for an emergency pod. I can almost guarantee you there's going to be a number more of those over the next few weeks with free agency starting. Click like, click subscribe, click the bell, and go to patreon.com/hawkblogger. Sign up now, get access to the Slack channel where you too can ask us questions, which we're going to get to in a few seconds here. But in the meantime, Super Chat is a great way. And we have added YouTube memberships. So you can become a YouTube member. We've added multiple tiers to the YouTube membership, and we're going to do some cool stuff there. Private live streams, Q&As, things like that. So
private live streams?
Yes.
Whoa,
it's not only fans, dude.
This sounds interesting.
Just calm down.
Are there going to be is there a tip feature?
Well, that's why I got the better camera. I think people really wanted to see every inch of me. Every inch.
Got it.
Yes. It's not going to be that, I promise. I want the people are going to pay for me to not show anything. Yes. So I'm getting requests to lower the quality of my video feed. They want it to be blurry. I'm kidding, but I probably would ask that of myself. Anyway, so getting back to the super chat we've got here. Can we imagine a crazy world where we move up and take Tavondre Sweat, big 362-pound defensive tackle, and Byron Murphy, they're teammates in Texas, and let Leonard Williams walk out? I don't know, dude.
You're the draft guy. Tell them.
They need a second round pick in order to do that, which likely means they're going to need to trade back from 16 to get that second round pick. That's the most logical way to get that pick. If you're trading back from 16, you're not going to get Byron Murphy. Realistically, at 16, you're not going to get Byron Murphy. When we were doing all these mocks, dude, and Byron Murphy was the guy kept coming to the Seahawks, and all these published mock drafts were mocking Byron Murphy, I was like, sweet. I'm like, this won't last past the combine. And guess what? He blew up the combine, showed up. The guy was 300 pounds of just ripped muscle. Not quite Aaron Donald level blown up the combine, but he's a top 10 pick.
Is this
He
the
and
guy that
Jared
ran
Verse,
did
I
he
think,
run the
are
40-yard
pipe
dash
dreams.
at like a crazy number or something?
I'll tell you because I'm curious.
It's like
I
a
forgot what
5
his number
something,
was.
maybe a 5.4 or something. I feel like.
No. Byron Murphy, 40 yard.
I thought there was some crazy like 350-pound guy that ran like a early 5 something.
Oh, there was.
Okay, it
So
wasn't.
It
Just
wasn't
wasn't
Byron
him.
Murphy.
Okay.
Byron Murphy ran 4.87, which is still psycho.
Yeah.
But no, there was Mims. You're thinking of offensive tackle. He was 340 pounds and ran like 5. And by the way, T'Vondre Sweat, the 362-pound defensive tackle from Texas that we were just getting asked about, he ran like a 5.27. And that doesn't sound fast. This guy's a big dude. And there was a really cool bit of math that someone did online about the force generated within the first 10 yards, basically, like of
oh my gosh,
how much speed at the weight. T'Vondre Sweat generated more power than any player that went through the combine, because in the first 10 yards, that guy moved his weight in a way that no one else did. And it shows up on tape. This guy walks back. He collapses the inside of a line. So I'm all for it. If you could get me Byron Murphy and T'Vondre Sweat, sweet. You can't go in the draft thinking that's going to happen. Like, you just can't. You got to sign a defensive tackle. I think you got to sign Leonard Williams. And if you don't, I almost think you got to not sign anyone else, because I don't think anyone else is really worth. I don't want to sign DJ Reader or some of these other like run stuffing defensive tackles. That's not worth it.
A trade up just seems very, very unlikely this year.
That's the thing. Like, we have 2 third-round picks, and like everyone's like, "Oh yeah, we'll package our third and something else." I don't think the thirds are even going to have as much value as they've had. I think this draft is like a 2 to 3 round draft, and people are going to treat third-round picks like fifth-round picks. If you're trying to get a second-round pick, those are going to be even more precious this year. So I feel like the Seahawks are going to have to trade back to get a second-round pick.
Yeah.
And we'll just see. Our boy, Mr. Fautanu from UW, also just was a star of the combine. He may no longer be a guy that's available if you trade back. So it's going to be interesting. We'll talk about it a little bit more. We've got another super chat here before we get into our patron questions. Danny McCormick, thank you for the super chat, says Mike Macdonald's defense struggled before Roquan Smith. Just saying, Brooks is better than Queen. Draft a linebacker, sign Jordan Brooks, invest in the trenches heavy and safety cheap, juiced up. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think Jordan Brooks is Roquan Smith. I'm sorry.
Please, come on. Not even close.
I'm not there. I'm not there on the Jordan Brooks hype. I think Jordan Brooks is a very good linebacker. There's a reason Jordan Brooks has never even been a Pro Bowler. That's a pretty low bar nowadays, So Jordan Brooks is good. Roquan Smith is all pro. So anyway, let's do some patron questions. I'm going to pull those up here. You ready for these, Mr. Evan?
Now that half my Seahawks roster is obliterated, yes, I am.
Let's do it. All right.
I'm so happy.
Ev asks, which QB is the most likely to be chosen if we trade up? And which is most likely if we hold at 16? What are your thoughts on QB, dude? That's something that also changed since last time we talked. Last week, when we did a show, I think it was Jeff and Dayna and I, there was still rumors about whether Geno Smith was going to be around. And then finally it came out that he was assured he's going to be on the team. I think that was like a Friday. So now that we know Geno Smith's going to be here, what do you think the Seahawks are going to do? There's some people saying that they think they're going to trade up for a QB. Can you see that happening?
That's very hard to imagine happening, just with the amount of holes they have at critical positions everywhere across the roster. They don't have a second round pick this year. I don't think there's a guy in this draft within a realistic position, like ability to move up, that I think they should leverage the future for. I think if a guy falls to them like Penix, then you have a real tough choice on your hands, which is a different scenario though. It's very different.
Well, that's the other question here. So part of that Ev asks is if they're at 16, let's just say they stay at 16. I'll even expand it. If they stay at 16 or they trade back into the 20s, and Michael Penix is there or Bo Nix is there, pick your favorite guy. Do you pick him?
I do, especially if you trade back and it's the back of the first. And you remember, first round is critical for QBs because you get that 5th-year option.
Yep.
It's an additional year of basically, for a QB, it's actually still affordable, right? Relative to QB contracts. But you're telling me Ryan Grubb's not going to be standing up on that draft room table if Penix is on the board in the late first and they just pick up an additional second?
Telling. It'll be very telling if the Seahawks first pick comes up, Michael Penix is available, and they don't take him. Nobody knows him better than the guy running the offense there. And
yeah,
it'll be, I mean, if he's as good as some of us think he is, letting him slide past there will be very tough for them to do. I think it's really tough to take him though, because of the point you made. There are so many positions that need, like, offensive guard, offensive line is, to me, that's the pick right now in the first round. I think that's the best probable pick in the first round. And then in the second round, linebacker or defensive tackle, depending on how it plays out. And I think then you're looking, honestly, Evan, I'm kind of bracing for them taking a quarterback in the 4th or the 5th. And it's going to be like a Joe Milton or a Jordan Travis, who I'd be excited to add those guys. But I'm not sure, unless they are completely sold on these guys, I'm just not sure that they can make the case to take a quarterback in the first 2 picks of this draft.
Unless they're absolutely obsessed about the guy. Right?
Yeah.
Because if you think you have like a game changer, right, at 16, if you think you have a Josh Allen, you think you have a Patrick Mahomes, guys they've scouted, right, like in the past and were rumored to go after. If you think you have one of those guys, I don't think you jeopardize trading back to add a second and missing potentially a franchise game changer, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't think you take that risk.
Yeah.
The added value isn't worth the risk. So trading up is highly unlikely. It would shock me. That would be the most shocking.
That would be
move of draft day. I would shit my pants live on Real Hawk Talk. Like if we were doing a live draft reaction, oh my gosh, I would.
Yeah.
Nothing would jeopardize, by the way, my confidence like that in this regime than something like that.
That would jeopardize your confidence if they did
big
that.
time if they traded up.
Why?
Yeah. There's so many holes on the roster, and like there's just so many needs. Like you would have to be rock solid. This guy's a home run hit. He's going to be here for the next 15, 20 years. Like, and I just don't, as much as I like Michael Penix, I'm not there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So. No, I for trading up for sure, that would be shocking. But I mean, maybe if Drake May starts falling or Jaden Daniels starts falling or some of those guys that they might like a lot. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't know if it would affect my confidence in the regime, but one of the things I think you and I both like about what's happening now is they're reducing risk. They are giving themselves optionality and flexibility. They're taking the temperature down a little bit. You trade up and you draft a quarterback, the pressure and risk just ramp way up. If that doesn't hit, then you're screwed. You are totally screwed. You take an offensive lineman, he hits, he doesn't hit. That's not going to be like a defining franchise kind of decision. So I think that's what you and I are both reacting to.
Yep.
All right. Next question. Has no clue. This is for me. Any chance that Jason Myers will be cut for additional salary cap, or who do you think, if anyone, will be cut in the next couple weeks? Jason Myers should have never been signed. This is not a bit. I 100% don't think that Jason Myers was a player that warrants the type of kicker salary he's receiving. And I don't think the Seahawks are the type of team that warrants spending that kind of money on a kicker. So all that said, it does not make sense to cut Jason Myers from a cap position. I don't think you even gain anything this year. I think, in fact, you lose cap space if you cut Jason Myers this year. So no on Jason Myers. I think the other guys that are questionable, like D. Eskridge, you gain like $1 million, $1.5 million, something like that. You could look at somebody. There was someone else I was thinking about recently. Who was it?
Did you know Jason Myers is Filipino? He's a minority.
I don't care. I don't care.
He's a protected class. He is we need more minorities in the NFL, Brian.
I need to be protected from him is really what Nick Bellore. That would be the next guy I expect to be cut. Old. He would gain you $3 million in cap room. I think Nick Bellore is not going to be on this roster.
His tweeting is maybe worth that cost, though.
No. Michael Mathis asks, Evan, we have been clearing space for the trenches, right? ? I don't see us clearing so much money and then investing in the same spots. Maybe linebacker and tight end, since we don't have any starters under contract. Is that your read as well? That the money is really so that they can build up the trenches, that they're going to shift the money from these other positions to the trenches?
I'm not convinced of that. No, I don't know where the money's going to go, to be honest with you. Remember, it's a combination of not just free agent dollars, it's draft capital as well, right? So they could throw the dollars at linebacker. They could throw the dollars at, well, receivers, not likely, but I mean, it's where I hope they do, but I'm not sure it's going to happen there. I could see, like, would you be shocked if they signed, if they spent this time next week, let's say like $20 to $25 million in $25 to $30 million on the linebacker position average per year by this time next week? It wouldn't shock me. They brought in Jordan Brooks and added another guy.
Dude.
Would that shock you?
Awful. That would shock me.
I mean, I think it would be awful, but it wouldn't shock me.
That would shock me.
Really?
Yeah, 100%. I don't think there's other guys that are worth. I mean, Jordan Brooks. I mean, unless Jordan Brooks somehow is getting 20 out of that 25, and
I could see Jordan Brooks getting high teens. Yeah, I could. Like,
not a fan. All right. So next question. Imani Waddell asks, which is more appealing to the pod? A few big free agent splashes, several lower mid-tier signings to fill out the roster. Do you have a preference?
In a vacuum, I want the big free agent signings, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Look at you little dog.
Let's splash it up.
You're just a fan at heart, man. Your analyst hat just comes off, and you just want something that makes your nipples hard, man. You want a big name.
I mean, yeah. That'd be kind of fun, right?
I don't know. Here's where I'm at. 100% want big splash offensive line guard specifically. And big splash to me is Kevin Zeitler, Jonah Jackson, like those kind of names. Mm-hmm. Even if they go like Robert Hunt and he's a high dollar value, whatever, like I'd be okay with him spending at guard. That would be exciting. I would be okay with him spending at defensive tackle with Leonard Williams, obviously Chris Jones, but they're not going to do that. Christian Wilkins, but I don't think they're going to do that either. Otherwise, I don't want big. I want them bargain shopping. Speaking of big names, we got a super chat from A Browns 47. Thank you so much. He asks about Tyron Smith. So Tyron Smith, left tackle, really good. Could potentially be a right tackle. But I think if you're signing Tyron Smith, then you're basically guaranteeing that you're going to move Abe Lucas off of right tackle because you're not moving Charles Cross. And so I just don't think Tyron Smith is a little bit too much of a commitment to changing the way your line is at the tackle position. I think they are hopeful that they don't have to move Abe Lucas off of tackle right now. So I just don't see that working out.
What's his face out of New England makes so much sense. It's Trent. It's not
Trent Brown?
Trent Brown. That's what it is.
I don't know if I agree. You and Nathan were kind of on him. I think he's going to be too expensive. I think there's cheaper options. And I also think this is such a deep tackle draft. If you got a guy like Fatanu, would be ideal because he can play guard. And then if he needs to slide out and play tackle, he can do that. It would be amazing to get a guy like that. But I don't have it up right in front of me, but there's a lot of good tackles that you can get for cheaper, I think. A couple guys.
They got to add insurance there though. They can't go into 20.
I agree. Like George Fant was the guy I was thinking about. George Fant is someone that I think you could. Donovan Smith, who was a starter for the Chiefs. Those guys should be cheaper than a guy like Tyron Smith.
I love that George Fant is still in the NFL, by the way.
I love it too. I will tell you, I remember anyone that followed back then, I remember going to training camp and watching him in 1v1 pass rush drills as an undrafted free agent and being like, I think this guy's better than Jermaine Ifedi, who was like a first round pick. And he was. He was. Sam Brown, we're going to do a couple more here. Sam Brown asks, how, if at all, do you think John Schneider's free agency approach will change with a different head coach? Any thoughts, Evan?
I don't think we know yet. It's very hard to speculate on that. What do you think? I don't have a good answer for that.
One of the things I'm really excited about is we're going to learn next week for the first time. You talked about much. We're going to learn a lot, and we're going to learn some of it's going to be, okay, how does John act as the big head honcho in this situation? Because he's the one that has to sign off on every decision now. And then is Mike Macdonald going to be the guy who's like, hey, I know defense, so I don't need you to go out and sign top shelf free agents. You give me this guy and this guy, they'll do what I need them to do. And all of a sudden we're back to 2010 when Pete Carroll was asking for tall corners when no one else was asking for tall corners. And he was drafting a safety in the 5th round who looked like a linebacker, and nobody was playing linebackers the size of Cam Chancellor at that time. But Pete Carroll knew how he wanted to use them. Like the Seahawks zigged back then when everyone else was zagging. I'm curious if Mike Macdonald will allow them to do the same thing. We're going to learn about Ryan Grubb. How much does he care about the tight end room looking like it looks? Are they going to spend more on tight end than we think? Maybe they will go after Noah Fant and spend money there, even though I think we kind of are assuming they're not going to do that. I can't say. I honestly, I can't predict, but I'm really excited to learn who they pick and then start figuring out why they pick. But we won't know until we get there next week.
Yeah, this is fascinating.
All right, 2 more. Eric asks, do you believe that releasing Adams, Diggs, and Disley at once was an attempt to address all of the perceived contract issues at once, or do you think there are more additional moves on the horizon? I think we already covered this. I'm going to keep going.
Yeah.
Zach asks, what will it take for Grubb to prove he can adapt to the pro game? You want me to take that?
Yeah, you take that. You're the college guy.
I am certainly not the college guy, but I am a Grubb fan. The key thing for Grubb is going to be that he develops game plans and plays that can be repeated week in, week out. and that he is able to have moves and counter moves for how defenses will come after him. We saw, I mean, Chip Kelly is a great example of a college coach who was an offensive guy who came into the NFL and actually had a decent amount of success on offense in his first couple of years. And then the league figured him out. So I think if Grubb is as good as I hope he is, I don't think he's going to have to like super self scout early on. But I think what we're going to have to see is that defenses are having to adjust to his game plan. If he's not doing anything to cause them to change the way they defend the Seahawks, that won't be a good sign for him. My expectation is that the Seahawks offense is going to look significantly different next year, and that it is going to be harder to stop week in, week out. That's a tall order, because Shane Waldron, as much as I'm not a fan, he's a top 10 offensive coordinator in the NFL. Like, he's not bad. I don't think he's a great play caller. So, yeah, that's what I'd say. I think really just to make sure that to see that they have some plays that they can return to week in, week out, that then force defenses to have to adjust to them. All right. I think I'm going to ask two more. One, if Brock Bowers is there at 16, are you taking him? This is a tight end, Evan. Brock Bowers, you know a little bit about Brock Bowers?
Isn't he the top ranked tight end in the class?
Yeah.
That's a hard position for me to sign off on in round one. I saw a tweet the other day that was like, maybe you tweeted it, so apologies if you did. Somebody made a tweet of like the top 10 or the last 10 first round tight ends over the past decade, and like only I think it was one or two had received extensions from their drafting team. Like, it's just it's a position in the first round that just doesn't seem to have like a super high success rate. And again, with all the glaring holes on this roster, all the leadership they need at really critical positions, that's a hard position for me to be like, throw our most valuable offseason resource into.
It is one of the tougher ones to give a straight answer on. I will be a little bit disappointed if that's where they go, because there's other positions and other players I'm more excited about. But the truth of the matter is, Brock Bowers might be a top 5 talent in this draft. He might be a top 7 talent. And if you can get a true blue chip player, it's just hard to pass that up. And I think he's pretty projectable. But I wouldn't be upset, but I would be a little concerned. The opportunity cost there of the other positions would be concerning. All right, last questions for you. This comes from Jen. And this is for you, Evan. Are we allowed to hate KJ Wright even a little? The news there, if people don't know, is KJ Wright accepted a position as an assistant coach on the 49ers. How do you feel?
You're trying to get me in trouble, aren't you, Brian?
Just an honest answer,
on a Wednesday night in the off season when my Twitter mentions are calm. I prefer the Marshawn Lynch route. You see that video of him going around in Vegas? I think it was the Super Bowl. And for fans who didn't see it, he was walking around with a mic. He was going up to Niner fans who were clearly Niner fans, and he would ask them, "Are you a Niner fan?" And Marshawn would respond with some insulting language, and he said it to every single Niner fan that he ran into. F you, and he would hold the U really long, and it was really funny. So I prefer that route with the 49ers.
Yeah.
I think they're an embarrassment to this world. I think their fan base is repulsive, and
they are.
I hate everybody who's ever associated with them. And KJ Wright let me just put it this way. This is not the first disappointing thing KJ Wright has done in the past several years.
You don't have to tell me. You don't have to tell me. Yeah. I don't
Like,
care that he's coaching for the 49ers. It doesn't bother me. Whatever.
like
I think KJ Wright, we've joked about him on this show. And KJ was a great player for the Seahawks, but he is a guy that told everybody that Tedrick Thompson was the next great thing. He told everybody that Derek Hall was going to win Rookie of the Year just this last year. I
and
don't
what
know that
was
KJ
what
Wright's demonstrated. What were you going to say?
his evaluation of Hitler wasn't great.
Just saying. Yeah, not a big fan of that either. So
I'm just saying it's uncomfortable, but it's true.
No, it's true. So, I mean, whatever. If I'm KJ Wright and I get an offer to be a coach and that's something I want to do, I take it. And it's obviously a pretty talented coaching staff generally in San Francisco. So good for him. But it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me at all. I don't care.
I don't hate him for it because it's like, his playing days are over. Like, he's allowed to have a career, right? Post the NFL, and like, get your bag, like, you know what I mean? Wherever it is, go, people like in our world, in the tech world, go to competitors all the time. Like, it's an incestuous industry, and it's the same with the league. And, hopefully he has success there, but would I prefer he not go to the Niners? Yes, absolutely. So,
yeah. All right. Those are all our patron questions. I want to thank all the patrons, patreon.com/hawkblogger. You too can sign up, get access to the Slack channel, support the show, and support charity. Over $260,000 have been donated so far. You can be part of it, and you're going to want to. So thank you, and you can ask us questions each week. Also, if you haven't already, give the show a like, click subscribe, join as a member for the channel. You're going to want to do that. Lots of cool stuff coming there. We'll figure out how to integrate that with Patreon as well. Another super chat here from A Browns 47, reacting to our comments about Tyron Smith not being a good option. Asked about Cam Fleming. Says, so scared Abe Lucas won't finish this year again, and I'm a Kook fan. I think you have to add a tackle. That's not a question. You have to add a tackle. Does it have to be a free agent tackle? No. Would it be better to add a free agent tackle? Yes, because then you go into the draft and you don't have a need there that you have to address. If you don't sign a free agent tackle, are you screwed? No, because this is a super deep draft at the tackle position. So that's a position I think you could find someone in the 4th round that could be better than Stone Forsythe. So I'm not too worried about that. I'm also a little less worried, Evan, because they know Abe Lucas's prognosis. And Ryan Grubb talks about Abe Lucas and Charles Cross like they're the tackles for years to come. So if he had reason to think that Abe Lucas wasn't going to play, I think he'd strike a different tone. And I think that if they end up spending money on tackle and free agency, like big money, then I think that's a pretty good indicator that they know something not good. Otherwise, I think we're all right. I'm not too worried there. All right. So as we kind of wrap up here, Evan, this is possibly our last show before free agency next week. It's possible I'll do something in between because I'll be obsessed. But I've got my other pod that I've got a couple things going on, so I might not be able to. And I want to warn people on Monday, I would love to be live at 1 o'clock, but I'm going to be down in Olympia interviewing at the state capitol for my other pod. So I will have to hop back in the car and drive back to Seattle to get on and do the Seahawks pod later that day. But you can almost be certain that we will do something Monday afternoon or evening. Point being, you and I probably won't do a show between now and then. Tell me what you want to hear Monday. Like what? You just close your eyes. You imagine your phone starts blowing up. You see text from me. You see a tweet from Adam Schefter about the Seahawks. What do you want to hear Monday?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the The thing that would excite me the most probably is Leonard Williams coming back. I think that's a big one. A Clowney acquisition would get me pretty stoked. And that's not a bit.
I know.
Like, he had a career year with the Ravens, and Mike Macdonald unlocked his ass. Like, it could happen here. That would be a really big deal. Trying to think what else from like I mean, those would be pretty big moves. Leonard Williams returning would be massive. Trying to think who else. Kevin Zeitler, we mentioned him, but
guard would be the biggest one for me.
Yeah, guard would.
Someone names other than Damian Lewis and Jordan Brooks would be exciting for me.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about free agent names that like I would be curious, like I would be excited about not returning to the Seahawks, right? Like
I know people are gonna get this twisted with me and Jordan Brooks. It already's happened. I'm gonna say it again. It's not that I don't like Jordan Brooks or I think he's bad. It's just the price and the risk of a long-term contract with him that gives me pause.
Damian Lewis returning at any sizable deal would be really frustrating.
That I feel differently than Jordan Brooks. I don't think Damian Lewis is very good.
Yeah.
I think he's average. I think Jordan Brooks is above average. I think Damian Lewis is average. And if you sign Damian Lewis to like a 10 plus, 12 plus $1 million a year deal to be an average guard, when there's all these other options out there, I will be very disappointed. That would be really disappointing.
What about Noah Fant? Would you bring him back?
I'd be disappointed in that too. At the numbers that he's going to probably command.
Yeah. Yeah, he probably does get a semi bag.
Give me Colby Parkinson. You know,
I've been hearing some talk on the Twitter waves about paying him a little bit of cash and like.
But what if that's like $5 million? I mean, that's fine.
Okay. Like fine. I don't love
there's some decent tight ends in the draft. I don't hate. And you can get them in later rounds, but you need to sign at least one free agent tight end.
You
just do.
Yeah, who's in the room right now? Like
nobody. It's empty, dude.
Like I can't think of a single.
I mean, there's literally guys, but it's nobody.
Yeah.
I just feel like Colby Parkinson is going to be around the right price for the right amount of value. And then you just go bargain shopping in the draft. But I'll tell you, dude, I mean, for me, it is guard. I want to hear a guard early, and I want it to be good. I'd like to be Zeitler or Jackson. I've got specifics there. I will be excited with Leonard Williams. It would just like I won't be as excited, but like at least it'll just be something that's marked off. And then for me, from there, it's linebacker. I want to hear that they're in on a couple of guys. Like if they went after like a Willie Gay or Drew Tranquil, or I mean Blake Cashman would be very exciting. Someone that would indicate Mike Macdonald thinks that he can do something with this guy and make something out of him. That would be exciting for me. And then safeties. Dude, there are so many good free agent safeties. I tweeted about it just before the show. This is just a list of guys, Evan, that are under 26 years old and good. Starting level and available. Geno Stone, everyone's going to be talking about because of the Ravens. Julian Blackmon from the Colts. Jordan Fuller from the Chargers. And Darnell Savage. Those are all guys. Jeremy Chin is another name. Like, there's a lot of dudes. And then that's not even including guys that are a little bit older. Mike Edwards for the Chiefs has been a big-time playmaker. I mean, CJ Gardner-Johnson's 26. I don't know if that's the guy, but he certainly has a point of view on how to play the game. And Jordan Whitehead from the Jets. I don't know, man. There's just a lot of freaking safeties. You tell me that they're not going to be able to sign one of those guys to a reasonable deal?
They need to. That room is empty. Julian Love, Jarek Reed, like who?
You're not a Julian Love guy. You're not convinced on Julian Love.
I like him. I don't love him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People are talking about Xavier McKinney in the chat, and I know that on Twitter as well. McKinney's going to cost. And I guess my thing is McKinney's a very good safety. I'd be really cautious about the whole point of moving on from your veteran high-priced safeties is to shift that money elsewhere. Don't then go back and spend big money on another safety, I should say. I want to, if you're going to spend big money, spend it on defensive line, spend it on offensive line.
Yeah.
Do not spend it on safety.
John Schneider has shown that he can draft and develop defensive backs, right? Pete Carroll too, but
yeah, hard to know how much is one or the other, but yes. So I mean, I'd feel differently if there wasn't such a long list of young and talented safeties available that should be affordable. Taylor Rapp just re-signed with the Bills for $5 million a year, and it's likely less than that. That's like with incentives, I think, what it can reach. So I mean, he's a starting safety. He's probably making $3-4 million a year. Like, do that. Get a couple guys like that.
It just makes that Jamal Adams deal look so bad.
Like, it was awful, man.
17, 18 and a half per year. Like, oh
yeah.
My God.
100%. All right, folks. That has been another episode of Real Hawk Talk. I'm Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter at HawkBlogger. Evan Hill at EvanHillHB. Look at him yawning. This has been the most exciting hour of his life. He just can't wait to. He was asking me if we could do longer, and I just said no. We got to call it.
Brother, I'm old these days. Okay, I'm at bed by 9:30. It's crazy.
It's the best, man. Early bedtimes, so sexy.
It is
so
amazing.
Good. All right, Patreon.com/HawkBlogger. Give this show a like, click subscribe, click the bell to get notified, because I guarantee you there will be shows at odd hours, and you're gonna want to know when they happen. We will see all of you together over the next week as we learn together what Mike Macdonald, Ryan Grubb, Leslie Frazier, Arden Dirty, John Schneider and his role, all that, how that's going to come together. We have no clue until next week, and I can't wait. So we will see you all then. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care. Have a great rest of your night.